Good evening. This is Ghettos of the Mind, episode 27. My name is the Street Librarian. I'm with my compadres, or one, I don't know what we say, part of the Ghettos of the Mind crew, Abstract and
We
Trigger
are the
Mike. We're in the
avenues and the
house.
streets.
And I wanted to really sort of start, continue this conversation we started last week, talking about the state of Black America. And in this case, I want to look at a couple issues that have come up recently. One is no knock warrants, and the other would be what I would call the rise of the warrior cops. And hopefully, we'll get a few more people in. And I'll put a link to the stream that you can, anyone wants to, can click on and say what's up. Um, but yeah, I want to start talking about no knock warrants, and I was doing a little research about what no knock warrants are, and I just do my little librarian thing. And no knock warrants were, basically an executing officer entered a premise without giving notice or warrant of their purpose. They just burst in. And no knock warrants
They
basically
don't have
started
to
out.
announce, but
They don't
yeah.
have to announce, right? They started out basically as associated with SWAT teams. SWAT teams were created after Watts Rise in 1965. The idea of no knock warrants first came apart as a campaign strategy for the Nixon camp. It was suggested as a law and order campaign, and they were using it to kind of push the whole idea behind law and order. And it was pushed into federal law actually in 1970. So those are some small things about it. Couple other things about that as well is that the death of Fred Hampton is actually one of the first situations of that I can recall of whether or not Warren. I should say first, but
That's right.
one of the earliest, most well-known versions of no knock laws, no knock incidents.
It,
Um,
it's
no
gonna
knock
come up
warrants.
again. It's gonna come up again later, but there's a tendency with this that you just alluded to. When we have these situations, they go awry, it often leads to political movements, sometimes good and sometimes bad. But continue.
No, I was gonna. They kind of, I wouldn't say that they sort of have decreased after the 70s, but it really took off in the 80s. Reagan and Nixon and Reagan, particularly, they were law and order candidates, and they were the ones that basically helped bring back no knock warrants, but basically, into the war on terror, which kind of takes into today. And I had a statistic with how many no not warrants. I gotta look it up, but I'll mention it a little later. But it is interesting to hear
In
how
2015, there were 20,000 used. Within the last month, there were 70 in Baltimore.
in Baltimore, yeah, and it's interesting to see how these things have developed and how long lasting this is. A couple of things to know about no not warrants is that I forget what year it was, but they were taken off as a federal law. And I don't know what year, but what it is that a judge can now basically have order a not order but allow a no knock warrant if it's needed. So and that's kind of what kind of takes us today. You have the war on terror, the war on drugs, and a lot of situations with that, which kind of leads into a lot of things that happen today, situation we have today. And the main, the one of the more popular versions of the no knock instances, and there are thousands of them. I was reading them, and there's so many. I mean, it's not even funny. But the most widely known one, more recent one is Breonna Taylor, and now they have was it Amir, I think his last name
Amir Locke.
Amir Locke. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, what happened with him? And it's interesting to see how these things work. And so that kind of is the whole idea behind no knock warrants. And since Mr. Abstract is the one who seems to be the most versed on no knock warrants, I'm gonna ask you. We'll start the proceedings off with you and ask you a question. What do you think we can do about no knock warrants? How can we, what's the thing we can do to prevent them from becoming such an issue? What
In most states, we already have. I actually sent this link to you guys in July about this. Connecticut just outright banned them. I think at this point we're at 32 states that have banned them. The issue is the states that haven't. Normally with these situations, it would be the police officer would have to request this from a judge, and for the most part, for a judge, it's a rubber stamp.
Right.
Like the barrier is very low. The other side of that is what usually leads this off is an informant will say like, I think this guy's got weed or drugs or whatever the fuck, maybe some illegal guns, and the cops like, oh well, you've got an arrest, here we go. The judge signs off and they go in, and then it instantly kind of devolves into a bit of a shit show, because in this situation, if they're breaking into your house, and I mean yours, specifically street librarians or Mike's, because this can happen to anyone.
Oh yeah, there are
That what
many
I'm trying to,
situations like that, yeah.
yeah, what I'm illustrating with this process and setup, if I'm your neighbor and I think you have something, I can inform a cop. And the way a lot of cops respond to these things, I know this from experience, they kind of act like they're like dogs with a bone. They're going to just think, go, get in quickly. Accountability will come later, if
Yeah.
it comes at all.
It
They'll come in. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
They will come in after they get the no knock warrant, come in and say, hey, put your hands up or whatever the fuck. The problem is, in this time frame, you do not know it's a murderer. You do not know if it's a burglar. You do not know if it's a pedophile. You do not know if it's a rapist. You don't know if it's other gangsters. You don't know if it's anyone else. You don't know it's a police officer. In this time frame, you do not have enough time to react. And this is kind of where it goes into my biggest issue with this. If you shoot at the cops and kill them, you can get off. If they kill you, they can also get off. Anyone dies in this exchange, you have a very good chance of winning, because your argument, which you can argue, is, I didn't know they were a cop. In Breonna Taylor's case, her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, successfully argued that. He injured one of those cops. He shot at 3 of those cops, got off. He got his charges dropped with prejudice. Happens all the time. But the end. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying here about that. I know they dropped it with prejudice. I heard they dropped it, but I kind of I assumed it was kind of because of the blowback from the case.
No, it's actually very concurrent with most of these cases.
Yeah,
I know there's this perception that a lot of the national shit is what's dictating the local stuff, but no, because this is even true in fucking Texas, where there's a lot of these. There was I'm actually looking at one of the pictures of one of the cops killed right now. Hold on. Sergeant Investigator Adam Soders. There was another one involved in this case. They had a report this guy was growing weed in his house. The cops would come in middle of the night. He kills them. He kills 2 of the cops, and he doesn't get charged for it. He does get charged for drug possession, though.
I think I read that case. Was that they found some red? They thought that he had some marijuana in his house. They raided his house, and he shot at them, and then apparently they still they arrested him for possession or something in regards to it.
Oh, he got convicted for the possession,
but it wasn't even that much. It was like residue, and they convicted him of it.
2 weed plants. I believe it was 2 or 6 inch tall weed plants. Wow. You know, weed, that thing that's still a category 1 substance because it has no medicinal purpose. Yeah. There is no medicinal, medical, health related reason for anyone to have marijuana. That hasn't changed since its inception. Thanks, Nixon. See the problem?
It goes back a lot further than that, but
oh yeah.
So what say you, Mike? What's any thoughts on no knock warrants and the craziness with them?
Well, I think abstract has most of it, right?
Yeah.
They're bad practice, and they come out of a time period when we were viewing specifically American citizens, our citizens, but specifically like Black and criminal citizens, and those are interchangeable to some people, violently.
A lot of it.
don't think they're necessary anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think they were necessary in the first place. But the dangers in which they're just deeper indications of things that are just wrong with how crime and punishment is metered out in this country. And they ought to end. I mean, Amir Locke, gets busted in on, and they shoot him within 9 seconds of being in the house. Like, what no-knock warrants do. They're designed to shock whoever's on the other side of that door and get in. And get in before they have a chance to either escape or defend themselves or destroy evidence.
I was reading a little research about that, and that's one of the things that was the purpose behind it. Was a shock and awe thing. So it was like it was to prevent. So say I have a meth lab, right?
It's a surprise attack, and then they go in like assuming that everyone's got an arsenal, and the hard thing with the way, at least I think, is that I connect things that don't appear to be 1, 2, 3 related, because very rarely are things ever directly related, but thread A can pull on thread D in a way, and that causes result 7. Right. I think they ought to end. But as we are moving increasingly towards a society that encourages severe punitive damage for any amount of wrongdoing, I don't know how we move people.
I have something to add to that point.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, the people that end up surviving these things have been able to successfully, and I mean this, successfully sue their town and police department. Breonna Taylor's family, I believe, got around 10 million. I'm going to talk about this case when it comes up again. Julian Benton, paralyzed.
There's another case of a woman in just to add on what you're saying, is a woman, and a lot of these occurrences have been happening in Chicago for some reason.
Yeah,
Chicago's a mess. There's a case. It's a woman, Anjanette Young. She's a social worker. Burst in her house, no knock warrant, and they had basically went.
That was wrong house.
Yeah,
happens a lot too.
Yeah, she got 2.9 million from Chicago. So these things are actually costly to many. That's kind of.
This is the real reason why I keep bringing this up, because every way I try to argue this, it doesn't make any fucking sense. If you're a citizen and you want to exercise your Second Amendment right, you're in a clear violation. It is Castle Doctrine, stand your ground laws, however you want to interpret it.
You gotta understand that one, just fundamentally, Second Amendment rights are not for people like us. They're not. I mean, like us. They're not.
I know what you're referring to.
No. Is it right?
Continue.
No.
Continue.
Is it right? No. But like in practice, the Second Amendment does not apply to us. But I've gone and lost my point. But it's unfortunate. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna stop.
If you look at the history of gun regulations in America, a lot of it, I believe this was one of the points you were alluding to, it has a lot of racist history. Oh, yeah. A lot of where gun rights get restricted for everybody, it's in the name of restricting it specifically for blacks.
For black people.
And this is where there's this massive conflict.
The reason you can't carry a gun openly in California is because of the Black Panthers. Yep. And not because the Black Panthers were doing anything wrong. They weren't. They were expressing they were exercising their Second Amendment rights. But that's scary.
Their guns weren't even loaded in that picture.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. They were there for the symbol. But they used their Second Amendment rights, and white people got mad, and Ronald Reagan passed strict gun legislation.
That old ray gun, he just appears everywhere.
Which is what's always hilarious to me, because whenever you run up against one of these, specifically right gun nuts who blame California, and saw how terrible it is, and they point out the gun regulations, and you explain, well, do you know why it's like that? Because a bunch of black people rolled around with guns, and Ronald Reagan was like, you can't do that. That's why no one can have a gun in California, because black people were doing what you are doing.
You're a conservative hero. Yeah.
You're freak out. The thing you're mad about is a result of your freak out and racism. But again, like, it is one, three.
I will quote, I'm not a big fan of this guy anymore, but he said it best. All gun control is racist. It's got a very big racist history.
Yeah, it is.
Spade is a spade.
It is.
Yeah.
My story said it. I would advise everyone, if you're interested, you want to hear pro-black gun ownership in a very common sense kind of way by someone who I hate to admit is a vaccine denier. He ain't perfect, but he's the one that coined the term, and he's gone in detail about this.
Who is he?
Maj Toure.
Oh, okay.
I would in terms of black conservatives, Maj Toure, Colin Noir are probably the best two people to follow. Just with a certain grain of salt for Colin Noir, for Maj Toure. Colin Noir is a money-making shill, but the research he actually does into these issues and the fact that both of these dudes spend all their time advocating for black gun rights and taking up specific cases involving actual black people getting mistreated when they try to exercise Second Amendment. They're not Candace Owens is what I'm getting at. Candace Owens is self-serving. Maj Toure and Colin. Yeah, I know. I don't even want to go into it. Don't even want to go into it. Maj Toure and Colin Noir go out of their way to advocate for people who need advocating, who otherwise wouldn't get the support they deserve.
Yeah.
Shit sucks.
It's interesting how these things keep coming up. I mentioned the woman in Chicago, and then there's whole situation with Amir Locke.
Speaking about that, they were looking for his cousin, and they later arrested him in connection to a homicide. This is kind of the big clusterfuck of the paranoia and the problem and the approach to this type of shit. Allow me to make a contrast, if you will. Sure. In Brantford, a couple of months ago, we had an armed gunman. They set up a perimeter around this motherfucker and waited for him to come out. That is the procedure when you have one of these crazy situations. And most of these mass shooting situations, the cops do not go in guns blazing to neutralize the threat. They set up perimeters. This protects the cops. This protects civilians. It doesn't escalate the situation. It actually helps to de-escalate it, or the person just commits suicide. Take your pick.
It's funny that in a lot of situations you have these guys that like that I was showing earlier, the guy in Phoenix, the guy who had the baby, that was a standoff. And basically if that is a standoff in Phoenix where this guy had, I guess he had a shootout with his girlfriend and baby, and he had a baby house in the house, and he put the baby outside, and when the cops went to go retrieve the baby, he walked out, his hands up, put the baby outside. When he walked out, he basically ran back in and shot at him. He shot at 5 cops. And eventually what happened was that, I don't know if they got the baby out there then, but apparently, no, they didn't actually. But they waited until the next morning. They went back in the next morning, and he had dead. I guess he shot himself. But you think in a situation like that, you figure that would be a situation where you need a SWAT team. You need someone to go in there and maybe not with the baby guns blazing.
Most of the time, as opposed to used, it's for shit they don't need. Holy shit! You guys don't know about swatting.
No, we do.
We do know about swatting. We do know about swatting. Like someone calls you, someone says that he has a gun and waving. He has a hot situation, and police burst in your home, and that happens. There's actually a situation like that where a guy got killed. I don't know the guy's name, but I read about that too. Yeah, a few. And it's a really interesting sort of side situation with that. But even in that situation, I can kind of see. I almost understand the cop side. It's like, okay, if it's like a high situation, that's high stress. I would almost understand there's a reason for that. But like if a guy has some weed, what's the point of you bursting into his house at 5 o'clock in the morning?
No-knock warrants are specifically for drugs or illegal contraband. They are not referred or never have been referenced to emergency situations. If I'm a police officer and I see somebody I can visibly see is armed, represents a very clear and obvious threat right now, I have the right to enter into someone's house. That is not a warrant situation. These are things that have to be signed and approved beforehand before they follow through.
Right.
You dig? A lot of times the discussion about that kind of are people not understanding that part, and they're like, nah, man, the cops can enter a home. What if there's an emergency? Like, that's not what we're talking about, Billy. You're not listening, damn it. Yeah, it's a shit show. But one of the points Mike brought up, I wanted to explain. I know it's kind of easy to see things in a lot of negatives. Most states have banned them. Our state being one of them. It would be better for it to be banned flat out federally. But the last time I've checked, as unfortunately, it's another area where Mike might be right again. Rand Paul did introduce a federal ban on them, and nothing has happened since last year. Like, fuck all has happened.
Yeah,
there's been, yeah, Mike is right. Oh man, who would have thought? Right. Another instance where Mike said something and he was correct. God, it hurts.
You can do victory lap.
Why?
Why? Because
which one's right?
I'm not the younger version of me that'll be like, yeah, I'm right. Like I'm not
like this.
Like, I know. Like a younger version of me was real arrogant about shit. So now I'm just more like quietly lamenting shit is shitty.
So it's I think we kind of, I don't know. You had Abstract, you had somebody, there was a case that you were wanting to discuss a bit. Did you want to kind of talk about that? Because I kind of want to move into the sort of second end of it, sort of what
I don't remember anything I want to discuss. I've been mulling over Dave Chappelle and how I was
before we get into Dave Chappelle,
let's say that toward the end. Let's say that toward the end. So, Abstract, you had something you want to talk about, a particular case that you kind of were
all right
had in mind.
I wanted to allow me to set the stage because this is talking about fucking Texas. I love talking about Texas. Texas, when I told you before about the two police officers that were killed, their own person only got charged for drug possession. That was Texas. In Houston, there was another situation like that in 2019. Kind of the same setup. In Houston, because of stand your ground laws, their general stance towards pro-gun rights and shit, if someone's breaking into your house using these no-knock warrant things and you're not giving ample notice of what's going on, it's kind of clear like you did nothing wrong. There's a case where we're getting some differential treatment, where one guy, he didn't get off all the way. They got him for drug possession, but he got away with killing 2 cops. Same situation with a man by the name of Marvin Guy. Marvin Guy is a 56-year-old man. He had served prior 5 or 6 years ago for drug possession and shit. He's been out for about 4 years. An informant informs the police that he's selling cocaine out of his car. The police raid his house at around 4 a.m. They could probably get him from illegal gun possession in this setup. He kills 2 officers. No drugs were found. For the last 7 years, he's been trying to raise money for his legal defense, while the police keep trying to pressure him into just signing a plea deal. Right now, there is a not a GoFundMe page. 1 second. There's a specific page where Marvin Guy is asking for donations. His family is, because this is another no-knock warrant situation. Not giving ample notice, not being notified beforehand. It's the middle of 4 a.m., middle of the night, whatever. And again, it is a situation that the police facilitated when they could have either done a sting operation while he was selling, if he was actually selling, or just waited for him to come out, set up a perimeter, and came out. Because the other flip side with all these no-knock warrants is, if you possess a quantity of drugs that you can destroy in the time it would take for the police to announce, there's no way in hell this shit is worth it. In this situation, I honestly believe when Marvin Guy does go to trial, he's going to win, right? And then he's going to sue. This is going to cost Texas millions of dollars. What amount of cocaine was worth this? Could he have destroyed a brick of cocaine in 4 minutes? Oh, wait, sorry, that doesn't even matter because no drugs were found anyway.
You
This is
know,
true.
I you know, I think in the eyes of law enforcement, I don't think they care. I don't think they care. I think it's, you know,
I continue.
it kind of leads in, and what I want to discuss later is sort of the militarization of police. And I think the mentality of a lot of police, you know, has shifted to a large degree. Some of it is, you know, and I don't say some of it's warranted, but I think the mentality of police has shifted in certain degree, like how they look at crime, you know, lawbreakers and crime and what have you. You know, it's a different mind state. So I don't know what.
It depends on the state and the department. Specifically, I'd say this is more with narcotics officers, because there's another thing that's kind of clear in between the Breonna Taylor case, the situation I asked in Houston, that's the park raid shooting. Basically, false information from an informant, fabricated information. Basically, this woman called the 911 saying that these guys were selling drugs, that they had kidnapped their daughter. She lied and is now serving 4 years in jail because she lied. The narcotic officer in Houston said, like, oh no, they've got an informant that said this.
Right.
He later basically had to confess that he lied about that. They raid the house, they killed the dog, they killed her, they killed the owner. No drugs were found. They're white, by the way. Every which way you can slice it, from the risk to police, the risk to citizens, the risk to people who want to protect their Second Amendment rights or their Fourth Amendment rights, it's bad across the board. And it's for what?
Yeah.
Like the city of Houston specifically is paying a law firm $1.29 million to fight this in court. They're not going to win. It's Texas having the big head up their own ass about not wanting to just settle the civil lawsuit like what they did in Louisville with Breonna Taylor. Take your L, take some accountability. No, fight it. You'll lose.
Does Texas have qualified immunity? Because I know some states, some jurisdictions have that.
For this, I don't think so.
Oh.
Because the officers involved in this case were massively corrupt. Oh, right. One of the cops in this ended up paralyzed. I forgot that. All the cops in this situation had gotten shot. At least 4 of the 6 had gotten shot. 1 is permanently paralyzed.
Wow. Yeah, that's
is it worth it?
That I think that may be the reason why it's taking so long for this case to for the wheels just to turn. You know, you have injured cops. They're you know, they are slow to react for this whole situation. So it seems like he needs an advocate of some sort to really push the issue.
His family still trying to they're the ones mostly pushing for the donations and shit because he can't get a proper lawyer to properly handle his fight. If anything, I was under the impression that the prosecution was delaying the case. No, it's Marvin, because he wants to make sure he has as good representation as he can. The longer you can build your case and you're not using a public defender or whatever, the better chance you have. So I'm trying to get together to get proper representation because, again, this is our Breonna Taylor situation. This is our Amir Locke situation. The difference is Marvin Guy is alive. No drugs were found. There's not evidence to substantiate this. And he's looking at the death penalty here.
Has he been convicted or is he?
No, he's still waiting. They keep pushing it back. I know there's some issue with the prosecutor not wanting to hand over information to the defense and Marvin constantly going through different legal counsel. They keep wanting him to settle or take a plea deal. They don't want to actually fight this. I guess Texas doesn't want someone to get off for killing 2 other cops, even though I can't stress this enough. Texas is a terrible, terrible state to live in if you're a police officer. There are many instances of police officers getting killed in Texas over their gun rights or the stupidest fuck way they handle their issues. I don't get why Texas is like this, but it's a big issue and it's very common. Most of the no-knock warrant situations I know of that I was making a list of are in Texas.
Ooh.
There are some that are in South Carolina. Was one in Massachusetts. I believe that was the one where they grew a flash grenade in and they ended up burning a 2-year-old.
I read that. That was crazy. Yeah, they do a flashbang, and I guess the baby had to be put on in a medically induced coma or something about that. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah,
Yep.
it's it's I don't know. Did you are you kind of did you kind of did you is that what you want to say about it? Because what I was going to say is that what you can do is you put the link. Give me a link to the information. I can put it in the.
I just linked the
page.
website, or you can just Google it, freemarvinguy.com. It's the first Google result. It lists all the information. I do, to be perfectly fair, I could see some people feeling a little bit more that he is not like Breonna Taylor. He is someone who has a prior criminal record. And no matter which way you slice it, he was in illegal possession of a firearm.
Yeah.
That being said, with the conduct, the way the police went about handling this, is this something worth someone getting life in jail for? I'm sorry, no, being executed for? For me, no.
I think you have to kind of it's a case like this. You have I'd like to look more in the case and kind of do more research on it in regards to
That's
my
fine.
own. But I think you have to think of it in terms of how we treat the people who are the most vulnerable. That dictates where we are, I believe. So if we treat people who are this guy who's an ex-con and maybe was doing something illegal, thinking like Rodney King. Rodney King was sort of a habitual criminal. He was speeding, he's breaking the law. I don't know what other situations he had that happened with him in LA, but that the fact that he was this perfect person actually made him almost a better candidate. I don't say a better candidate, but it made him a better representative because he's the weakest. He's not just somebody that's just this pristine person. That's an ideal, but someone that's not ideal. If you can make things right, or at least make things more equitable for someone who maybe isn't perfect.
Oh,
who kind of has
street
flaws.
librarian. That involves being proactive and not reactive. And I don't want to think about it. I only care about me and my own immediate needs. I'm not out here doing that. And I love being comfortable in my own state of ignorance.
I think us as Americans, particularly, we want easy answers. It's got to be black or white, and the world isn't like that. The world is not like that. It's many shades of gray, and again, I'd like to read this guy's case.
By all means, I think that's only fair. But what you're proposing takes a lot more effort, understanding, right, compassion. And I didn't enjoy saying this a few episodes ago, but I was being as honest as I could be in regards to like the state of America, in regards to social programs, social welfare programs that would make the general quality of life for every American better. There are Americans that would rather die than get vaccinated. That is of their own volition, their own willing ignorance on the subject. Getting some Americans to consider or think about what's best for them, or what's best for the country, or what's best for people who are like them, it's kind of clear that like there's nothing you could say for some of these people, because it's fundamentally what I think what really makes us different politically is what do we actually care about. I'll be honest, at my core, I would love to be a lot more conservative. The difference is I genuinely care about other people. I want the next person over to be doing okay, if not better than I am. I didn't go through all the shit I went through and came out of like, everyone should suffer because I have suffered. No, fuck that. I don't want anyone to go through any of the shit I've been through. I care about all Americans. And with the way you see certain people react to things they gravitate to, the answers they choose, the easy answers they pick, it's kind of clear they don't care.
Well, I think America has done a really good job of putting forth the myth that we're all individuals acting freely into ourselves. It's like that grand problem when you're talking about how people don't want to get vaccinated, don't want to wear a mask. It's just like, well, I understand, but like this is the instance where your actions affect other people directly. you don't want to get vaccinated, okay, but that will prolong the spread of a disease. You don't want to wear a mask, well, that will enhance the spreadability of this disease. Like we need you to come together. But America's done a really good job of really draining that oneness out of people for anything that's not war. We are all demanded to come together for the purpose of going to war. But then other than that, fuck all y'all. It's a zero-sum game. And it's unfortunate. I'm sorry I've been quiet. Like I'm not as familiar with the rest of this subject as you are.
It's okay. As I was making that point, I was like, because I know this is something you've mentioned a few times throughout the cast, and I'm sorry that it's like this. I
mean, it's not your fault. You didn't do it.
I know. It's just, it sucks because I see that in Black culture. I see that I just see that in American culture in general, and it's just, it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. It'll be the same attitude no matter what they're up against. And it's like, because this is how we respond to things, because the process is, I only care about me. That means you can't fight things as a collective. And it's like, that attitude translates to everything being bad for people who are like you and people that are around you. I would love for us to have a little more understanding and a little more empathy, but it's like, we don't. Ergo, why there are some states that are better to live in than others.
You know what I think? And I mentioned it earlier. At some time, I think that America has a case where individual freedom is paramount in a lot of people's minds. You know what I mean? If I have a motorcycle and it's 140 decibels, it doesn't matter how loud I do it, or if it disturbs you and you have a child or a baby, it's 3:00 in 3 a.m. in the morning.
But
my right to have my motorcycle be as loud as I want to takes precedence over however loud it bothers people. And I think it translates to a lot of other things. I mean, it's like, okay, I can have whatever gun I want. It doesn't matter if the consequences of it. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was like, you know what? I was saying the same thing. It was like, it seems like a lot of people would think individual individual freedom is paramount over collective good. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? And I think, and unfortunately, it kind of ties about the topic now a little bit with militarization of police. But it's a good segue. But individual freedom is so paramount that we've given up, or we're willing to sacrifice collective freedom for individual. It's like people who, it's like the guy.
Again, but it goes back to the idea that there is no such thing as a collective we.
Right.
Me, I'm most important. Specific circumstances.
I'm different. No, you're not. No.
I mean,
it's not even me. It's not even different. It's just, it's me. It's me. My everything. Me.
I get a participation trophy. No, the person I like politically is right because I said he's right. You just hate him because you hate me. But me though, me. I believe that's going to be the eventual downfall of this country. I think the fact that change.
We have so much, we treasure and keep this premium on in individual freedom, that it doesn't matter what happens to everybody else. It's just, as long as I can have my gun or my car as long as I want to, or I can do what I want to do, or I can not get vaccinated because, hey, I don't want to, because they're putting, I believe it, some other whatever crazy conspiracy theory I want to believe, and no thought about the society at large. You look at other countries, you look at as bad as China is, or many countries in Asia, they have more of a collective thought process than we do in America.
That stops, but it's in like deep and deep societal terms, like and like it's just not fair. I mean, I think what we need to do is stick to. I don't know. I was gonna say that we need to stick to the threads that are being pulled in America, and largely that's right wing extremism.
Oh shit! I had another point I had to make towards that. As you mentioned, Fred Hampton, the police and their no-knock warrants. They ended up killing someone for illegal gun possession. They gunned him down in the middle of his house, also at 4 a.m. He became the poster child for the extremist movement Boogaloo. It was another Breonna Taylor situation. I believe it happened 2 weeks beforehand. And from a very technical standpoint, their argument was the state will just come in and shoot me.
Yep.
Not exactly wrong.
It doesn't. I mean,
I don't agree with their conclusions. I do not agree with their conclusions, but that is what happened. The person did have illegal firearms. Was that mean he should get gunned down in the middle of the night? No.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. So I was, the no not warrants kind of is in a way leads me into another topic I was thinking about. And it's more the rise of the military cop or the rise of the warrior cop. Actually, there's a book that is kind of the book that is sort of the I don't see a Bible, but it's a book that really talks about it. It's a guy named Bradley Balco who wrote the book by the same time, The Rise of the Warrior Cop, and it talks about like how police have become a lot more militarized, particularly within the past 20 years since 9/11. And
Riley, what?
His name is Bradley Balco. The book is titled The Rise of the Warrior Cop. And he talks about like how police became a lot more militarized particularly after 9/11. That's particularly what sort of is the emphasis of it. But a lot of that,
I mean, we did
carries over
a lot
into
of military grade equipment. Too much.
Exactly. A lot of it was a lot of story. A lot of things talk like how a lot of it's because the war on drugs, and the war on drugs started that. But beyond that, the war on terror was kind of like taking the militarization on steroids. So so if you think about it, the war on drugs is one aspect of it, but then you have the war on terror that's taken to another level, and then you have where a lot of they had a program where they began giving surplus military equipment to different police departments, and the Pentagon had where they helped militarize police, and they'd give them really cheap, military grade equipment, M16s. I was reading about how some small departments had tanks and all kinds of, all these different things that police have access to, and a lot of this leads into the sort of mentality of thinking. A lot of police, I won't say a lot, it's because that's not really the right term, but some police seem to have developed this sort of attitude of thinking that they're in the military, and it's supposed to thinking that I'm a police officer and supposed to do a particular job and to keep the peace and to be a peace officer. It's more about I'm a soldier almost these days with a lot of police. You have this sort of ultra militarist thought process. And part of me is, I agree with it. And I think it obviously is a problem that sort of feeds into a lot of this no-knock stuff, because a lot of these cops, they become cowboys and they want to just go and be like SWAT and break down doors and
narcotics officers, the ones that don't have to deal with all the nuances of interacting with the public in a normal or positive way. I'm just saying it's been a recurring trend. I keep noticing it's a type of officer doing a specific type of job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also the type of people that are attracted to the job. And, unfortunately, you got a lot of guys, and I do mean guys, who are playing out.
A couple girls in there.
There are, but I mean,
mostly guys.
They're playing out some sort of power fantasy.
Yeah.
Or they get off on being able to tell people what to do.
I wanted to expatiate on that point because you're both bringing it up. It is a very blue-collared kind of job. And what the public is actually asking for these days is We want what I would call kind of more educated nuance to this shit that a lot of the cops do not have because it's just 6 months of training. And one of the other issues is when an officer does get more training, they're going to want to do harder, different types of work, maybe more office work, maybe in the FBI. It's hard to keep a very educated, very calm, better trained officer in that position because of the way it's utilized. Todd's earlier point, and I feel like Mike, you may have brought this up before, Cass, as well, is we've centralized too many of these things into police hands, and now they're required to do all this shit they are just not trained for. There are so many nuances that go into my job as a victim's advocate and shit that I had to go to college to get. I'll be honest, I'll throw myself out here. I prefer to look at things from the very simplistic, colorblind perspective. And it was to my detriment. It took multiple college classes of going over facts, data, statistics, and my own experiments I had to do for class to just be like, oh, I was wrong. Oh, shit, I was wrong. That's some shit that took me about a year and a half to just move mentally past that one little block in my head. That's more training than these officers are going to get in 6 months.
And then there's just the general the culture, which is just, you're here to protect yourself and your coworkers. I mean, and enforcing the law is part of the job, but at the end of the day, what you want is to go home, and you have to do whatever you have to do to feel like whatever you feel you have to do to justify being able to do that is okay. And there's just an inherent problem with that. I mean, it's just a fundamental problem.
I really think that in terms of the police, there needs to be a change and maybe or at least an adjustment in the culture, and it's because it's not an easy job. I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, the easy job. You just go ahead and do it. No, you deal with you see people at their worst in many cases. I mean, we're just talking about a situation in Phoenix. These cops are handling a hostage situation. This guy comes out with a kid with an infant, puts the baby out. They're trying to take to get the kid out of there, and he winds up running back in the house and shoot at him again. I mean, those are things you have to deal with, and that's stressful. And I'm sympathetic to that aspect of police work. It's not an easy job, and I think that,
of course.
But I also
these guys get all of the blame when something goes wrong.
Right, and it isn't easy. So
some of it's
not
fair. To be fair, no, a lot of it is fair. To be very fair, but at the same time, it's like you could be just doing your job and trying to be the best at your job. You make a bad call, you make a bad interpretation, you get all of the blame and you're lambasted. You're not exactly in the best position.
You're not, and I mean, and I always, people, no one curses out or thinks bad about firemen. You know what I mean? No one says, fuck the firefighters,
Our society has a scapegoat problem.
There was a case about firefighters being dismissed for using racial slurs. I mean, this is very recent. I'll see if I can find the articles about it.
Yeah, interesting. But I said to say that there's not this sort of scrutiny attached to firefighters, or not even scrutiny, but I wouldn't say a bias, but
firefighters don't have the ability to beat you up and send you to jail.
That's true.
Mike brings up a good point. To be very fair,
shoot you dead for carrying a water gun.
I'd like to argue the other point, but Mike's point is also extremely valid. I directly care more about, say, community and American citizens more so than police, which is not me saying I do not care about police officers. The general problem is also this is something evident throughout all of American culture and even within ourselves. A story will happen in the news, people will hear it one way, the CNN or big news will run it one way, and it will vilify the police officers, our police officers in general. So the takeaway is all cops, or what is being inferred as all cops. And if you go by a case by case basis, sometimes it's accurate. I was arguing this before that the police department in New Haven is not perfect, but it's not the police department in Bridgeport, and it damn sure isn't the one in LA or Chicago. Different police departments, different amount of community involvement. Also is a good way to curtail it. Hell, even on the flip side of that, for one of the cases I was looking up in Tampa, Tampa has a lot more police involvement with their community, so they are not as bad. You dig? It's just this added issue of, are you going to get a general audience, a general group of the community to understand the nuance of what happened in this or that situation? Are we going to do what we always do as Americans, which is, let's blame this one person, all of the blame? It sometimes it doesn't apply.
So let me ask you, Mike, what do you think can be done to make, what do you think can be done to either A, demilitarize police or make them less military, a militaristic force?
I mean, the first thing we have to do is there's a couple of pieces of legislation that are that allow surplus military equipment to be sold to
Police departments,
law enforcement, and that needs to just go away.
Yeah.
I think also
I was under the impression that it was.
No, they were working towards it, but then Trump killed that.
Of course he did.
Yeah. You have to understand that Donald Trump is a reactionary president. He's a reactionary. He's the result of a reactionary right-wing backlash incited by, quite frankly, incited by the existence of a black president. That is it. Like he is the consequence of America's racism. Like it is. It's just what it's gonna be. If Hillary Clinton had been president for 8 years, they would have picked a staunch misogynist. The next Republican would have been anti-woman.
Thoroughly disagree.
No. I'm saying.
I agree.
It's a reaction. Like he's a reaction.
Yep.
He's a reaction. Okay, like it's whatever.
I agree that he's a reaction. I just think he's a different type of reaction. He's the reaction of, I don't get it, and I'm tired of being told I'm stupid for not getting it.
Yeah, I mean, well, there. What again? My statement does not preclude that. Does not preclude your assertion. And in fact, they are all related, but it's not an either or. It's a yes and. And honestly, Aaron, one of the things that frustrates me about arguing with you is that you seem to think that there are all statements are either ors when most of them are yes ands.
I'm all nuance.
You know, but and yes and can get you off into the weeds very quickly, which is why I try to
Mike, it's okay, man. It's all love. Continue.
But like, one, we need to end the moving down of the military grade equipment down to police grade equipment. A lot of people seem to think that what you should start requiring, some form of college degree in order to become a cop. In other countries, European countries, in England, it takes you need a 4-year college degree.
That sounds being proactive.
It does sound like being proactive, and America is not proactive because being proactive costs money. Now, the primary thing you need to do is realize that not the cops are not the catch-all tool that we've been forcing them to be. What we need to do is reasonably, what we need to do is break up the various functions of the police. Now, there is necessity for a a security force. It's someone who does go out and track down murderers, someone who does go down and track down, and prevent against crime, like theft, or at least rectify, the results of theft. But the fact that the same entity that is called that goes down and gets people that break the law, violently, and steal are the same people you call when you're having a simple, I wouldn't say simple, but when you're dealing with a homeless person, that is fundamentally a problem. But also it's because the cops aren't there for your security. They're there to protect private property, and protection of private property versus protecting people from traffic accidents are very different. And it would be wise to separate those functions out into different organizations. There almost needs to be a civilian security corps that are not there for violence, but are there to actually help people. When you have someone who's having a mental health episode, even though they have a weapon, you call them, not the cops. When you have someone who's homeless and just sort of loitering somewhere, you'll call this other organization, not the cops, because the cops are only there to shoot people and take them to jail, and that's all they know how to do. And quite frankly, that's all a lot of them want to do.
I was just going to say, what you're talking about is called decentralizing. Community policing does a lot of that. And I know for a fact in Connecticut, we do that a lot. We try to allocate funds to different community organizations to address problems in the community, from counseling to programs for at-risk youth, etc. It's one of the big thing. Everything you just said is what we do, and we call it decentralizing. It is a very big component of community policing. It gets more community involvement to address the issues. I also think it sounds better. It's easier to market. It comes off more of like less of us saying, we're going to dismantle the police. I know that's not what you actually said.
Yeah.
It's just focusing on decentralizing, less overburdening the police. There was this image that went around during the whole, defund the police was hashtagging or whatever the fuck, of this police officer carrying this burden of these big ass bags with these very complex social issues on it. And the solution was just literally EMTs holding one of the bags, or this social worker taking some of this bag. Hell, one of the situations in Philadelphia where another person had gotten shot, they had a specialist working in the call center for people who were at risk, people with mental, I can't think of the name of it, and at-risk interventionalists, can't say it, specialists. They were not used despite the fact that they had funding to be used. It's just little shit like that goes a long way. So our police, because I don't see America getting past this idea of we need to just throw bodies at the problem. I don't see us being tremendously changing away from being reactionary in that regard. As proactive as I think we're really going to get is going to be hiring more agencies to help take the burden off of it. Functional, like I don't see it being a practical solution. I would love to do this, have the police go through more training, but that would also make the barrier of entry for us to get cops harder, which means we'll get less police officers. And we're already having that problem right now, either due to COVID. I don't really want to argue the protest, but sure, why the fuck not? And just the general filling positions, because it's a risky job anyway. Some of that function of, go ahead, Todd.
No, I was gonna agree with you. I was gonna say, it is a risky job, and I mean, I think you have to also consider that aspect of it. That, like, cops can get killed, and it does happen. I mean, it's, and I don't, I think, I wonder if you could perhaps almost, I'm just sort of spitballing, but say you have instead of, defining the police is such a divisive term. I think using that term, at one point I was like, yeah, I liked
came
it.
up with it. It was dumb.
here's what I think. I think initially, I think they thought that by saying defund the police, it was such a shocking term that it would make police do something. You know what I mean? And I think what happened was that word became weaponized. It became used as almost as a weapon.
Oh,
But what I'm thinking is that
there a lot of police agencies did change a lot of their policies and respond to the protest.
right
Some good did
because it
happen.
was right because it was such a shock. And it was like, what, really? We could lose money? Could police maybe find ways to maybe, I don't know if I'm using the right word, deputize certain other aspects of personality? So say I'm a social worker. You know what? Maybe sort of create position as sort of a social worker's cop. You know what I mean? So you're a social worker, but you also have the ability to deal with certain, situations, say the homeless guy, whatever, I don't know, that's just sort of spitballing.
Just be careful with the deputization thing, because depending on the state, they go to that more militia mindset. And if 2020 didn't illustrate anything, that's a fucking slippery slope.
Yeah, I guess well, maybe deputize is the right word, but something
I think,
where, something where you have something where it's not so okay. You have some homeless guy that's wandering around downtown with a samurai sword. Does that mean that the SWAT team with that guy, or he's walking around and acting a fool? Do you need to get out a samurai sword for that? Maybe you need a social worker that maybe has some police experience. Maybe another way of looking at it is taking people who are in this field of social work and maybe getting them police training so they can do that sort of end of it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
that kind of already happens, because they have police officers who do not have that training work with the crisis interventionalists to do just that exact type of thing. It's just utilizing that more. And it also goes to the problem Mike keeps illustrating, which is being proactive.
Right.
All in all, I will say this, depending on the state and the city you go to, like I said, I saw good examples of this, of good community engagement in Florida. I was very happy to see it. New Haven has this. It could be better. Town by town, state by state, the issue is this. The problems get worse when you have bad community engagement. If you have a society that largely doesn't give a flying fuck about how the police are doing their job, you're going to have cops doing some fuck shit. The police communities that care the most are the ones that are mostly involved with the police, involved with all these programs, making the phone calls. The problems there are still there, but they're less bad.
Yeah.
In Amir Lock, Chicago, because it's fucking Chicago. It's an area and a place where the reporting, the engagement from community is not great. It is often, I would feel as if you're in a police state because the crimes are that bad, which also reflects in some regard community engagement. As I've mentioned many times throughout the hood, every time there's a shooting or killing, people know who did it. They are well aware of who took their family member. And the community response to this is often saying fuck all. That is the climate where the police are trying to do their jobs. I would still argue the police should be able to do a better job. What happened with Amir Lock? Nah, fuck that. No. Like, you do your job, you do it as best you can. But the conditions in which it's happening, Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, so to your point, you're talking about like how when someone gets shot, people know about it. The reason why people don't talk is a lot of them they're scared. I mean, yeah, you could say the whole
Some
don't
of them are
snitch thing,
scared,
but
some don't want to get
some are
involved, some do not
right,
care. Some are just going to take the law into their own hands. There's a percentage of people who are doing this because they're fucking crazy. The other percent are doing it because of retaliation. And unfortunately, that percentage is higher.
I mean, but there's nothing you can do about someone who wants to retaliate if they're committed to retaliation. What I'm saying is that, like, say there's the old lady that happened to see what happened, or the guy that lives in the neighborhood that might know something that happens. How do you get them to say something? I mean, I don't think you can change. I don't think you can totally,
community engagement,
you know,
and getting as many people in that community to understand that You are not an isolated island. Your actions, how you respond to these things,
And again, a
does
lot of times
affect
people,
everyone, including you. It's that
you know,
same issue I was talking about before.
I agree, but a lot of the situations, people, if you live in that community, you got to live with that. It's easy for me to say, "Hey, you should participate and if you see something happen, you should say something." But I got to live in that community. I live in the neighborhood that it happens, and and me saying something could make myself a target, and I don't know, that has happened, and it does happen sometimes. So it's. I'm not trying to say that you're not right. I'm saying that it's not as easy as
I know it's not easy. I'm just saying this is why some of these low income areas either start off bad, they're going bad, and then they just keep getting worse and worse because that's the response. I understand the thought process of thinking about what's in your best immediate interest. This is probably going to segue nicely to our point. Mike, you want to start off when we get to the housing situation, right? This is probably going to segue into it.
No, I mean, the housing situation bothers me. I just wanted to talk about how everybody jumped the gun on Dave Chappelle, and while.
But you're the housing specialist.
I know not as much as I need to be, but it's just everyone's like sitting there yelling at Dave Chappelle, and really what it is he might have been doing what he did to protect his property value, but there's also the fact that what caused him to essentially pull that tactic was that the development company that the town was going to sell this parcel of land off to was kind of being shady with his intentions. So it's one of those things where one of those things is not exclusive to the other.
It's not mutually exclusive. It's not black or white. I get it. I mean, and since we're segueing into the Dave Chappelle, and another thing I want to talk about too, since moving on from this topic is when hearing about it, I was like, I thought it was a dick move. I thought it was a rich guy dick move.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna take my ball and go home. But I still, optically it doesn't look good. But I respect the fact that he was the one to say it, because a lot of times, a lot of people, celebrities would they use some intermediary to get their viewpoint across. But I also, I don't know, I kind of, maybe he should have, I don't know, again, I respect the fact that he said it, that he was the one who, I don't know, I need to learn more. I guess apparently, and if the developers are being disingenuous, then just say they're being disingenuous. That way you're qualifying your statement. You don't what call it. But
this is what I was talking about. This is what I mean. We caught a small clip and thought we got the whole goddamn picture, and everyone ran with it. At the very least,
yeah. But a
group where we looked more into it,
right? But you know what? No, that's what he said at the meeting. So I can't. I'm not.
With every situation, there's more to it than that. If a motherfucker's walking around fucking spreading shit on the walls, there's a story there. How did this person get here? Was he always the guy spreading shit on the walls? There's always a story. There's always more going on. Reacting by just the snippet.
If a motherfucker's spreading shit on the walls, it's my walls. I'm gonna kick his ass. Okay, I don't care. I don't care how
you should care.
I don't care
what if it happens again?
You're mentally ill or downtrodden. I'm still gonna kick your ass. I may call the police afterwards.
You already know this person has mental illness because that's not a normal response. So there's more going on there. Even in your example against me, you're showing me that you're thinking a little bit more.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. That was derailing.
But I am willing to at least give Dave the benefit of the doubt. And again, I mentioned that I respect him for at least being the voice that says, "Look, I don't like this, and I'm going to do this. This is my issue." Hey, at least you're the one.
At me.
You're making.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at something on my screen.
What do you think
I'm
about
laughing at something on my screen? Don't worry.
So you think, what do you think about? I haven't been following it entirely. What do you think about the Joe Rogan situation? Joe Rogan.
I checked out of Joe a long time ago, so I honestly do.
I've been following it, and I'm just kind of like, they do this to everybody. It's the same example I just said. They brought up every moment and every instance he'd said the N-word, regardless of context, to defame him. I'm like, we gonna.
I mean, like if you here's the thing: if you listen to it, there ain't a lot of context. He wasn't saying it as part of a bigger commentary on racism. Like when you say we walked into the Planet of the Apes, we were the only white people in there. There's not a.
I know. I watched the video of him explaining, like, yes, even at the time he thought it was a bad joke. He had made the joke and later went on to explain it. He had a good time at that premiere, and of his own admission, he's saying, like, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I'm saying there is a difference between the unrepented, unabashed racist and the motherfucker who can just say, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I'm not going to go at both those cats.
And again, which is why I'm not upset about it. Like the thing you got to understand about social media is that you will always find someone who just discovered something and will be mad about it as if it just happened, no matter when it happened. You know, So India Ari saying this motherfucker's racist, and I got the receipts. I mean, okay. I mean, it doesn't.
And you've had him all this time. You've had him all this time.
It doesn't affect me because I have stopped listening to Joe Rogan. I didn't listen to Joe Rogan that much anyway. I once saw him have an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and because I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, I listened to the interview. You know. And when he talked to Cornel West, I listened to the interview. When he talked to and if it's people that I find interesting, I listen to the interview. The problem is he also had on Ben Shapiro. He also had on Jordan Peterson. He also had on Alex Jones. He also had on all these people whom I find. He
won't have Alex Jones back on again. He made that.
It doesn't matter that he won't in the future. He did in the past, and I was like, you know what? This isn't something that I need to be listening to. I'm just going to go listen to the Read podcast again, which is two black queer people being black and queer, and it's great.
Mike, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if he has someone on that interests you, are you still going to watch? Yay or nay?
I mean, he doesn't have that many people who are on that are interesting to me anyway. And quite frankly, if he has I mean, no, not really. I can find other interviews. with the person I want to be interested in. Like, I don't need to listen to that. Like, it's. I am not. If it's something I want to see, I'll watch it. And if it is not, then I won't watch. Then I won't watch it. Like I stopped to the extent that I did, which was small. You know. I checked in every once in a while, but like over time, the majority of what he talked about, or the ways in which he talked about the things that were going on, were not things I was interested in engaging with. So I stopped. Like
that seems fair. If it's not your bag,
it is.
It's not your
fair.
bag. I would like to point out though, my favorite person he had on was Ben Shapiro because he thoroughly took him to task when he talked about race.
Yeah, but
like
a
bunch of dumbass assumptions.
It's just Ben Shapiro's a fucking racist, like a deep-seated racist, and like
horrible fiction writer,
horrible fiction writer, like and his fiction.
Listen, I can play the violin very fast, almost as fast as I can talk. It's fucking amazing.
I mean, like,
play the violin.
I think I saw some video somewhere of someone like reading through the book, and it's just
it is
just wretched. Like on the one hand, it's like he literally says that like the inciting incident is a cop shoots a little black kid who was dealing drugs. Yep. Like the black kid was dealing drugs, but he was like under 10 years old. And then, you know, the white cop becomes victim because a black preacher uses his murder of the child who was doing drugs and which should not be felt bad about to defame the white person's character. It's like, no,
I'm not arguing that Ben Shapiro's a good person. I'm not.
We're not talking about.
We're not arguing.
We're talking about how deeply racist Ben Shapiro is,
and what a writer he is.
Saying there are people that are only going to watch Shapiro who are going to watch Joe Rogan just on the strength that he was on it. The good thing about these two intersecting is Joe Rogan basically like, yeah, your racist assumptions are fucking dumb as shit, has some good. There's a lot of crossover. The negative side of Joe Rogan is, I just say, his handling of the COVID shit. Because the other good thing that has happened is one of my favorite YouTube personalities, Kyle Kalinske, got on the show and went over politics from a very neutral standpoint and made all of his points and cases, which I'm like, good, because that's a massive audience.
I also get tired of Kyle Kalinske because he's one of those.
He's not
liberals,
going to be.
He's one of those leftists for whom nothing is good enough, and like.
I agree. I still think he's a good source of news.
I mean, he's a source of news, and you know, I have him. I'm following on YouTube. Like sometimes I watch what he's playing. Sometimes I don't. Like it's like listen. It's like how much you listen to Vosh. Like you know,
is Vosh a person?
Yes, he's a person. Don't worry. It's whatever. Like or Hassan Piker or like
that guy's a hypocrite.
You guys are deep in these YouTube political streets, man. I'm just like, I
follow Kyle because he goes to the original source, and I'm like, oh, let me check out this news story. I'll literally link to the article he mentions.
It's actually like a really Todd. It's actually like a really toxic habit of like being chronically online, and I don't want to get into Hassan Piker as a hypocrite because he's not. It's just people are bitching about. He's not. We live in it. Like you can like you're mad because he bought an expensive car and an expensive house. Like
no, I'm fine with that because he openly emancipated Hassan Piker. It's very angular face.
Okay. Very good looking man. Very handsome man.
That's nice to know.
At the very least, he's a rich dude that wants to be taxed higher.
My issue, getting back to Joe Rogan, my issue with him is that it's kind of twofold. The whole thing with him, with him being claiming that he's racist and all this is like, come on, man. It obviously someone created that. Someone created that to kind of.
It's a very specific type of white guy that, because they grew up in relative poverty and had kind of a hard way up. They kind of think that they're, to the extent that he realizes there are certain privileges he has, but he's like one of those, I treat everybody the same type of people. And I just think that's an oversimplification of the dynamics of privilege and class and race and how they all interact. And I think he gets a little too comfortable because he jokes around with black people, and knows them in a professional context. But you know, even I guess he just strikes me as like one of those white guys who's like, you ultimately have to be careful of him because it is possible at any time he'll do something that will break your heart. You know, oh, I didn't think you'd say or do something like this, and it's you
mean like have too much drink and
you know, it's just like I don't know how big old. It's just I don't know how much I can trust this person. You know, like and I do.
Mike,
you're gonna anyway. So go ahead.
I fundamentally believe, person to person, there is a limit to how much we can understand of someone based on our own experiences.
Yeah,
there's a limit.
I cannot. We are friends, but I will never fully understand your life experience because we are fundamentally different people. Just like we are different people, and that's fine. But to get back to this broader thing, like I am not in any way affected by this Joe Rogan is racist dust up, right? Because I checked out of Rogan years ago. Like it just stopped being something I wanted to listen to. I didn't listen to it that much anyway, so I just don't feel the need to listen to him. And then he had like Jordan Peterson on, who's an idiot. He had, you know, Ben Shapiro on, who's a fucking racist. Like he has, I'm don't need to go back there. Like there's a part of the internet I don't need to go back to, and I'm not gonna jump up and down about his racism. I'll be mad about the fact that he's always spreading around COVID disinformation. But even that is just
That's the thing I'm mad
that's
about.
something to be mad about. But like me being mad that some random white man that I will never meet and do not know said the N-word a bunch of times in the past. Like, okay, what you know, okay, what? Like he doesn't write laws. Okay, like Mitch McConnell is legitimately more dangerous to me than Joe Rogan. Just.
I'm glad you mentioned it. To me, that's what kind of what bothered me about the situation. It's like now everybody's gonna get in the whole high horse. Oh, he's the word. I'm gonna cancel Joe Rogan. I don't like Joe Rogan. I'm like, come on, man. Really? You really think that the people who are really racist and really out to get you and suppress your your rights are the ones that are only out saying nigger. I mean, there are people who never use that word that will treat you worse than I was talking to my daughter today, and I was saying like how they used to be saying that people say that I'd rather be in the South and North in some cases because I know who doesn't like me, whereas opposed in the North, I don't know. You sort of the sort of blatant person that's blatant with their
devil,
what you call it, devil versus devil you don't know exactly. In a way, I kind of that thought process, works in that way. I think there are people who will never use the dreaded N-word, but support the most racist policies and will do everything to keep the place, and in their own way, whereas someone who may have used it, just used it, and okay, yeah, if they use it, maybe they deserve a smack. Maybe that's what they deserve.
Like, hey, chill and just keep it moving. I
think a smack works sometimes.
Yeah. This is kind of the thing that kind of bugs me the most about like the day and age we live in. I got to the point where I've just started just being like, if this is the shit you personally or whomever is gonna lose their shit over, you're probably not that serious of a person. You're not worth the time. Because I'm like, you're mad that some comedian and a bunch of random ass clips that fight for an actual issue that actually affects people right now. Get mad over that. Get over that so that really matters. I've watched cartoons, movies, or whatever the fuck that had a bunch of questionable or weird shit in. I'm not going to be the guy who's not going to let that go. There are more practical shit that affects people that matter tremendously more. Who the fuck cares?
I think we're in a day and age where there's a lot of performative angst and anger and activism. You know what I mean? It's like if I'm the first one to really catch someone doing something, I'm doing something. And I think a lot of this performative activism and just sort of anger is just that. It might be kind of swift, and it might be, you may get 1,000 people on Twitter that may say one thing, but how deep are they saying it? How far they want to go with it? How convicted they are? How big and saying this? It's just to be seen. It's a lot of it's just I just want to say, I just want to have something to say, or I want to pile on, and sort of doubling back to Joe Rogan things. Like, I don't listen to Joe Rogan anymore either. There was a time when I was really, wow, he's really talking something really interesting, and but I think I've kind of passed that time. And if I want to, if he's talking to somebody I'm interested in, yeah, I probably will watch it. But most people I'm interested in, I can find them in other sources. I don't have to rely on Joe Rogan for me to listen to different people I want to listen to that I think are interesting. And the other thing I think is what's happening with Joe Rogan particularly is that for years he operated on YouTube, he was on iTunes, and he kind of existed below the radar. He was sort of high, he was popular, but he wasn't so popular. He was in the cultural
now he's bigger than CNN. I wonder why they won't shut up about
$100 million puts a lot of eyes on you. And that's what I think is happening. So everyone is really looking at him. I think the thing he'd be well advised to do, especially with the COVID thing, is hire him a fact checker. And every so often,
he doesn't use it.
Someone, right, but he has a producer that does it. It does Google. What I'm saying, he's to hire someone, pay them, and every week or every couple months you know what? Here's the fact checking thing. That way you keep yourself honest. You're being, you might not make any money off it. Say you pay some guy $100,000.
We came full circle. We came full circle.
Why is that?
I believe I said it fucking at the beginning of the damn cast.
Really?
There are some people who, no matter what you say, no matter what you tell them, no matter what they go through, they're not going to change. If I remember, one of the dudes from CNN went on his show and went case point by point explaining your vaccine shit is fucking wrong, and you're saying this to a large audience, and homie did not change.
All right, the other my sort of third issue with Rogan is that I think when you have this much power, when you're this much of a big voice, there's a certain amount of responsibility because people are listening to what you say, and I think for a long time he got away with saying, "I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions." But yeah, you have this huge voice, this huge platform.
Yeah,
there's some responsibility behind that. Yeah, and I get
to deflect
I'm just asking questions, Dodge, because it's just right. Like it's just no. You read some dumb shit on the internet, and for whatever reason it resonated with your personality, so that's what you're going with. And that's just,
most people are problematic.
But but I don't want to see him canceled. He should continue doing his podcast. If he wants to. If he wants to have Alex Jones' show, fine. You know, it's or Candace Owens, Alex Jones may be a little different. I kind of
he did
personal issues with him.
He kind of pointed out all the things that were wrong with Candace Owens. That was funny.
But the one thing I say is, if he's going to take $100 million from Spotify, which means you have a lot of eyes on you, he needs to find ways to sort of put some buffers in there to protect himself, because he's going to run into this again. He needs to come at this a good fact checker, someone who comes there every so often that says, "Oh, you got this, and this wrong." Oh, okay, we did. Hey,
you said the actual thing that bothered me. Yeah, he should. There's this tendency in our country to come at things from this American capitalist perspective of, I'm just trying to make money. I don't see the problem. And it's like, that's the problem. You're thinking it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you clout. It's going to negatively affect you by literally just, taking a little more responsibility.
I don't think in this case it's not he doesn't want responsibility. I think it's he doesn't want to change. He's been doing things a certain way for so long and not realizing, look, things are different. Things are different now. There's more eyes on you. You have more attention. You aren't just the cool guy that does the UFC fights and has a cool podcast. It's like you're Spotify's main guy. You know what I mean? You are the one. They're paying you all this money for you to be their main guy. You got to tighten up your belt and tighten up your ship so everything runs smoothly if you continue to do it this way. Otherwise, maybe you need to get off Spotify and go back to iTunes or maybe stick with YouTube. That might be, it's less money, but you have more freedom.
That would be talking about him being more responsible, but it's like he's getting paid to do this. There's always this kind of fucked up incentive when you're getting paid, because your incentive is you're getting paid. This is going to affect your money. And why would you do things that could mean you changing? You could lose money while doing it. No, I don't owe these people any more responsibility. They paid me. It's not my fault they're giving me money.
All right, yeah, but here's what I'm saying is that this is a way for him to kind of address the situation, move on ahead, and put some buffers in there so when this happens again, look, I got this in place. You know what I mean? Everybody remembers how Howard Stern used to be. Howard Stern used to was
Howard Stern has some fucked up things in his past too.
He does, right? But what has happened to him over the
Jimmy
years?
Kimmel.
He's actually become a fairly good interview, and it changed a lot of ways. Why? Sirius Radio, Sirius XM, more eyes on him, and he's become a lot more responsible and aware. So I think the same thing with Joe Rogan. He needs to find ways to put buffers between what you call it. The racial stuff. You just gotta suck it up, man. You said some stupid shit.
You brought up a good point.
You just gotta eat it. You just gotta eat it.
I think he will. I think he'll weather this pretty quickly. you know, like it's just to tie it up. Like I don't care. Like
Yeah.
or is this? Is it this? Is it this?
You're not
You
boycotting
know,
it?
is this Aaron? um, um, right? Isn't it cute? Look at this.
Come on, Todd.
What?
I mean, streets.
What am I supposed to do? What am I giving you the?
We're all just doing it.
Oh,
He ain't gonna do it. No.
Go on, a little more, a little more. We got recorded doing that.
Yep.
Hero.
yeah. If I ever become famous, they're gonna use that against me for life. I tell you.
Fuck them. That's their problem.
They missed a moment.
They missed a moment.
A magic moment.
Anyhow, that's the Joe Rogan thing, man. Anything else?
Oh, I was gonna say, would you compare Dave Chappelle to Jeff Bezos? Because like I noticed this. I was thinking about this today. I care enough about Dave Chappelle to give him the benefit of the doubt to look into this more. I didn't give a fuck about Jeff Bezos and him wanting to change a bridge in his town for his yacht. I'm like,
okay. So Jeff Bezos is commissioning a mega yacht with like 4 sails, and he's building it. He's having it built in Switzerland, or not Switzerland, the Netherlands, and where the ship construction facility is, in order to get the boat out to sea, they have to essentially go past this 100-plus-year-old drawbridge, like raised bridge, but the boat is taller than the bridge. Mm-hmm. So he's like, well, I want my boat. So he's gonna have them dismantle the bridge temporarily so they can sail the boat out, and then I guess put it back together.
He's got the money. He can do it. You know,
it's just
he can do it.
It's similar to the Chappelle thing. I just feel like that's more completely self-serving.
I mean,
it feels different, right?
I guess it does, but how does that affect anybody? So him dismantling and rebuilding his bridge. What does that do? What?
Is he paying for the city to get a new bridge?
No, he's gonna have him reassemble it. I assume it's a historic bridge. He's gonna have it dismantled.
Oh,
and he's gonna have them put it back together. He's gonna pay for both of those.
Well, he's paying for it. So, hey.
So he's gonna have to reassemble it every time the boat goes in and out?
No. Like once it leaves it's a construction facility. It's not the dock. It's just where they're building the boat.
Hey, you know what? People have done crazier things. There's a guy. There's a director, Werner Herzog, who made a movie about a guy who wants to put a riverboat in the South American jungle. So he's directed this movie about the guy who wants to do this. So what he does is he hires all these people who live in the South American jungle, has them take an actual riverboat over a mountain to make his movie. And it's a crazy one. It's called Fiscaraldo. It's really crazy. But that's the type of guy he is. And people do crazy stuff all the time. So hey, you know, I mean, people have done crazier things. So I don't, you know, I don't put him and Jeff Bezos in the same territory. I think, you know, these are
thank you guys for
tens of millions versus billions. That's a little different.
Billions, not billions.
Billions. So anyhow, man. So I think we exhausted our topics for today.
That's all right.
What's any good Black history stuff you've been doing this month? Anything watching?
No, I just want to say that I still haven't opened up my copy of the Milestone Compendium because I don't want to fuck up the binding.
Then don't keep that shit.
Buy electronic version and then just read that.
I don't know that there is one. I gotta go look.
Really?
Yeah.
Just do that.
This is a small thing. I told you I got hired, right? I'm still doing the paperwork. I called my grandfather and my aunt, and they were really fucking happy for me.
Good.
All right, cool.
That was amazing.
Where are they? They're in
my grandfather's in New Haven. My aunt is also in New Haven.
Okay.
There's a reason why I keep talking about, like, man, I don't want to live anywhere else. My kids are not getting shot at though, so
I mean, there are less dangerous parts of New Haven.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, there are places to live.
place I can afford that's also away from the shit.
Yeah, there's that.
It's
problem.
a whole bunch of stuff. The point is, they were really happy with me, and I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that from them.
Good
to hear, man. Good to hear. I mentioned earlier, I'm going to mention it again. You need to watch documentary on Dick Gregory. I mentioned it earlier, and what's it called again? It's called
Dick Gregory. Let's see.
I'll let you know exactly what it's called. But it's a documentary came out a couple years ago about Dick Gregory's life, and it was really interesting in watching it, like to see how the type of comedian he was versus when he started in the '60s, around that time, '50s, late '50s, to the guy he became. And if you watched any later Dick Gregory, he was like, he'll cut you out in a minute. Like he was just real salty and talk, but good-hearted, you know. And watching it when he was younger, you see he was really cool. He was really just laid back and really really just sort of almost real cerebral like. And it's interesting seeing that documentary. But if you haven't chance to see it, it's on Amazon Prime. What's it called again? I'll tell you in a minute. It is called. Oh man, I gotta tell you in a minute. Hold on. Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory is called The One and Only Dick Gregory. It's a really good documentary about his life. He's a really, I think he kind of, you look in terms of people with luminaries of comedy. You think, okay, Richard Pryor. You got to throw Cosby in there somewhere, which we should talk about on a later date. I'd like to say.
You're gonna say the name of that NPR special, aren't you?
What NPR special? I don't.
There's some NPR special called "We Should Talk About Bill Cosby."
That's a Showtime movie series, which I'd like to talk about that. I want to actually watch it and really and discuss it because I'm curious to see what W. Kamau Bell say about it. But I think he doesn't. Well, but in terms of Dick Gregory, in terms of the people we really put in their highest esteem in terms of comedy, he doesn't get looked at as much. People talk about Richard Pryor and maybe Cosby and Eddie Murphy and now Eddie Murphy to some degree and
Chappelle, Afion, Crockett.
But I really think Dick Gregory is probably one of the first ones that really, in terms of being an activist sort of comedian, he really set the trend for a lot of these guys. So if you have a chance, check it out. Worth the time,
Right.
But that is it.
If you can hear this, you have been given your homework. Listen to some Dick Gregory and give out some Dick good.
Whatever that means.
But Dick. You've ever had a good spotted dick?
Spotted dick. I've never had spotted dick.
I guess I'm the only one who's been to England.
I have not. All right, folks. All right. Peace.
Bye. Arrivederci. Now.
I mean,
to say ciao or child.
Ciao.